Welcome to Smart, Successful and Stressed Mums, the podcast for professional mums who are doing it all. I'm Jasmine, mum of two, qualified social worker and lover of personal and professional development. And I know firsthand what it's like to juggle career, parenting and everything in between. Here, we dive into real conversations about motherhood, career, health, well-being, and the daily balancing act that comes with it. You'll hear from experts in the field, as well as everyday professional mums sharing their stories, struggles, and wins. So grab your favorite hot drink or reheat the one you forgot about, and let's get into it. This is episode 12 of Smart, Successful and Stressed Mums. This episode is the first of a 4-part series, Career Crossroads. In this 4-part series, we're going to be delving deep into different career transition points for us as working mums. And there's going to be 4 different topics, and these are topics that come up quite regularly with my coaching clients, but also in my friendship groups with my family. I'm going to be taking you through this 4-part series, which I'm super excited to be talking to you all about, and hopefully some of the key learnings and also mistakes that I've made, I can hopefully share those with you and then help you to take some of the steps that I didn't take, or take some of the steps that I took but much earlier than I did. So hopefully either way that you'll get something out of it that you can use as you work through various career transition points. So today's episode is going to be about returning to work after maternity leave. And given that this is such an important topic, this topic actually deserves its very own masterclass. So I do have a masterclass that you're able to register for, and then once you register, you'll receive a link to the recording, and the link to the recording does not expire. So even if you listen to it months after the masterclass, I will link to the masterclass and how you can register in the show notes. Also, as part of the masterclass, when you register, you will get access to a free bonus reflection workbook. Take this as your invitation to come along. This masterclass is specifically looking at redefining your career identity after motherhood, and then that transition from maternity leave back into work. So this episode will be a bit of a sneak peek into some of what we may be talking about in the masterclass as well. So let's jump right into it. Let's not waste any more time with any more intros, because this is such an important topic. So thinking about when I was on maternity leave, there were definitely a lot of identity shifts. So identity from employee to new mum. Then it was the transition from mum of a newborn to mum of a toddler. And there's so many transitions that actually occur during that maternity leave period that it can sometimes feel overwhelming to be thinking of other things other than the daily tasks that go with caring for a baby. And if you're a first-time mum, your whole routine, your kind of way of thinking, your way of life, everything just needs to change and adapt to accommodate your new amazing little human. So it's definitely not an easy transition for all mums. And if you're anything like me, you felt unprepared to become a mother in the first place, but you learn a lot as you go, which is part of the
beauty of those first few months, even the first year, even the first few years, is that we're just learning as we go, and there's no right way or wrong way to be thinking about returning to work. And then what that looks like for you as returning to work is a really unique. There are a few things to think about when you're transitioning from maternity leave back into the workplace. I wanted to stress the importance of considering what's right for you and your family and your unique situations. And all of us have different financial situations. We all have different support networks. Some of us have, and I did an episode on it a few episodes back, which I can link to in the show notes, but some of us have more of a village around us that can support us in caring for our child when we return to work. And some of us, I was one of them, that had a lack of, I guess, a village around me. So then relying paid options of care, such as childcare. There's definitely consideration based on your support networks, your family situation, and if you have a partner, what your partner's work schedule is. So there's so many considerations before you even decide that you're ready to go back to work. And the timing is something that a lot of mums have guilt over, self included. The timing of when you return to work, again, is unique to your situation. Some mums, and I do know of some mums, that because of their own financial circumstances, and some of them didn't actually have paid maternity leave from their employer, that they actually needed to return to work around 3 months after having their child. I returned to full-time university studies when my oldest daughter was 6 months old, and I definitely received some judgment and some comments from other mums around me. So the timing of when you return to work really is dictated by your own family situation. It's so important just to silence everyone else around you and silence their opinions, because other people's opinions on when is the right time for your family for you to return to work, then that's a decision that is solely made by yourself and your partner if you have one, and anyone else around you who may be in your village providing some sort of care and support for your children while you return to work. So the timing is one of those things that definitely needs consideration, because the last thing that you would want is to have a definite return date to work and then find that childcare, don't have a spot for your child. Definitely considering ahead of time your timing around when you're going to return to work, including which days of the week you're going to be working if you're not returning full time, and having a routine already in place can also make that transition from maternity leave back to work a lot easier. In one of the previous episodes, episode 9, when we were speaking about that it takes a village to help care for a child, and then episode 10 was my meal prep episode. Yeah, so you can definitely return to both episodes 10 and 11 actually, where I'm talking about some of my time saving hacks. And if you can implement, you may already have some amazing time saving hacks that you've already implemented into your life and your routine. If you have any time saving hacks that I'd like to share, I would love you to let me know. Send me an email, a DM, or comment on any of my social media posts where I'm talking about any time-saving hacks. I'd love to hear what yours are. If you can implement any of these time-saving hacks while you're on maternity leave, can definitely make that transition back to work a lot smoother. And if you don't have any existing routines in place, such as meal prep or delegating household tasks and calling on others to support in childcare. Even if you've organised once a week, you could go to your mother-in-law's for dinner. So that saves you having to cook for one, maybe 2 nights if you get leftovers, if you're lucky enough. I know my mother-in-law always cooks up enough to feed a small army, so we always leave with leftovers, and I'm very thankful to her. She's not into technology and doesn't have a smartphone, so she won't be listening to this podcast, but I'll have to just tell her that I gave her a huge thank you on the podcast. I'm sure she'll be thrilled, if not a little bit embarrassed. But definitely looking to implement some of the time-saving hacks ahead of time would be one of my key recommendations. And some workplaces have, I can't remember what they're called, but they're check-in days or return to work days. It's almost like an orientation back to work before you actually officially start. I can't remember what they're called, but I know some government roles have that, where you can organise to go to the office for a team meeting. It could be a training, and then these days are not counted towards your maternity leave entitlements, but you'd need to check. If you are employed in a professional industry that has trainings or workshops, then you can see if there's anything that you're able to join while you're on maternity leave. So there are ways to sort of remain connected to your profession, to your career as well. It just depends on what your specific, I guess, industry is that you work in. And I'll leave you with one last tip before we close off this episode, is to have streamlined communications with your partner prior to returning to work. If you've been the primary carer and you're the one on maternity leave, then having a plan around the communication once you return to work, including who's doing what task, is also really important to try and predict any teething issues, no pun intended there, teething issues that may exist when you're transitioning back to work, as this will most likely, for your first baby, it will be new, uncharted waters for both yourself and your partner, in which you're both working outside of the home and you have a child to care for. So actually planning how that's going to look logistically and how you're going to communicate this with each other is really important. If we don't have these discussions, then we may presume that our partner knows that we expect them to do something in particular, and if we don't communicate with our partner, then they could assume that we are doing the drop off and pick up every day because you've been the primary carer for the duration of your maternity leave period. So actually working out the logistics of who's going to do drop off at childcare, or mother-in-laws, whoever's caring for the child, who's going to do drop off, pick up, how's the housework, how's the meal prep going to look, etc., and actually really work it out. Is there going to be a primary person doing the bedtime routine while the other one finishes off the dishes, cleans the kitchen, maybe starts a meal prep for the next day? So there's a lot of, I guess, logistics to think about that we sometimes unfortunately leave to the last minute. We're quick to organise childcare. Okay, great. Childcare Monday to Wednesday, mother-in-law's on the Thursday, and then Friday's your day off, for example. And you've organised with your employer your starting date, you've organised the childcare orientation, so you're ticking all those boxes. But then some of the missteps is actually pre-arranging out of you and your partner who is doing which task, so everyone's clear on what's expected of them. So again, it leads to a more likely to be a smoother transition when you return to work. So I hope this episode has been helpful. So just to summarize, to bring it all to a close, this is part 1 of what is going to be a 4-part mini-series, Career Crossroads, in which we discuss different career transition times for us working mums. So this episode was focused on that really important and often scary, let's be honest, transition from maternity leave back into the workforce, and that transition from maternity leave back to work. There's a few tips that we have spoken about today. The first one is, they're in no particular order, depends in which order I remember them in, but one of them has been around putting some of those time-saving hacks in place prior to returning to work. Some of the time-saving hacks that we were talking about in episodes 10, 11 around meal prep, delegation, and also looking at who's in your support networks to help. And that was in episode 9. We were talking about it takes a village, and also having important communication with your partner around who's doing which task, so it's a smoother transition as possible, as well as working out your timing. So your timing of when you plan to return to work. So they are just some of my main tips. And again, if you're interested in unpacking this a little bit further, please register for my masterclass, Reclaiming You, Redefining Your Career Identity After Motherhood. You'll receive the link to the recording. So that will also be linked in the show notes as well. And I hope that this has been impactful for you in some way, and that you'll continue listening over the subsequent weeks where we continue our Career Crossroads mini series. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.